Good morning. Today is Tuesday, Chavtes Nisan Tovshin Ayin Zayin. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar Al Kein Gimel in the second Mamar of Purim, Al Kein Karu Layomim Hoeileh Purim, and we are on page Kuf Tes Vov, almost in the middle of the page, or exactly in the middle of the page, at the full stop. After the brackets where it says Kanal Sif Beis, the line starts with the word Bishnei. The Rebbe, in the last section, is explaining why Haman drew a lot, Hipil Pur, in order to reach the godly level of Goyrel, which is a level which is beyond the Shtalshalus, beyond the chain order of creation, despite the fact that the prevailing level of godliness during that time period was already Lamayla Shtalshalus, beyond the chain order of creation, as denoted in the name Achashverosh. And Achashverosh is a level of godliness that Achres Vereshis Shalai, the beginning and end, meaning time, is equal before him, equally insignificant, which in other words is another way of saying that it's a level of godliness which is beyond the Shtalshalus, beyond the chain order of creation. Why did he choose to go higher? Why did Haman find it necessary to go higher and to go to the level of Geirel, which is a higher level of godliness beyond the chain order of creation? And the Rebbe began to explain that the fact that you call him Achashverosh, meaning to say that the beginning and end is equal before him, equally insignificant, means to say that beginning and end is something which could be related to him, albeit in a manner of excluding him from that. Meaning to say that he's not limited, he's not categorized, he's not bound by the restrictions of Achris Vereshis, of time. He's beyond it. Right? But the mere fact that you could say that he's beyond it, that denotes that what? That it's meaningful enough to say that he's beyond it. If it would be completely meaningful, then it wouldn't come into the frame at all. For example, take physical and spiritual. A physical object is categorized by the fact that you could say that it's something you can grasp physically, right? Take, for example, sound, right? Sound is also something physical, but you could say it's something physical, but it cannot be grasped with your hands physically. Take, for example, an intellectual idea. That's a step up. You can't say that take for example, sound is limited in space. The sound will carry up to a certain point and not beyond it, right? As far as sichlis, an intellectual idea, is completely beyond time and space to say that it can't be grasped. So in other words, when you exclude something from a certain categorization, it has to have some kind of a relationship to it. That's shlila. Remember we learned about chiyuv and shlila. So you say it's not this, or it cannot be apprehended in this manner. So it has to have some kind of a relationship. If it has no relationship at all, then it doesn't make any sense even to describe it in that negated way. So when you say Achashverosh, Achris Vereshis Shalei, that beginning and end are equal before him, it means to say that there is some relationship with it, albeit it's beyond it, right? That's Achashverosh. We'll start from 2 lines above where I mentioned. 2 lines above. We'll start with the line that Hu Begilui, where the square brackets are closed. Full stop. Achashverosh is beyond the Shtalshalus, beyond the chain order of creation. But it's Achrish Vereshis Shalei, at least it has that relationship where you can say that it's beyond beginning and end. This is not the case when we talk about the level, the aspect of Geirol, godliness at the level of Geirol. Ein melchatchila in the reishis v'achris. The beginning and end doesn't come into it in the first place. As is understood also from the fact that when we say Geidel, generally speaking, we talk when one draws a lottery, when one draws a lot, uses Geidel as a method for choosing, we're talking about two things that are actually equal. They're really equal. So it's not that Achris v'reishis shalei, this is the beginning and this is the end and it's beyond it. Right? It's completely beyond. And that's why you can't choose. I mean, obviously you can use Geidel as a method. You can use drawing a lot as a method for choice, if you decide so. But under normal conditions, you'll either have a logical reason to choose something, or you have a desire for one thing over another. But that's when when those two things are not completely equal. There are characteristics within each of them that are unique to it. Normally, Geidel is employed when the two things are actually equal, really equal. As mentioned in Sif Beis, right? In chapter 2, where the Rebbe spoke about the two Seirim, the two goats that were used on Yom Kippur, right? One was brought as a korban and one was pushed off the cliff. They had to be shovin, b'mareo, b'keimo, b'domim. They had to look the same, they had to be the same height, and they had to be the same value. In other words, they had to be identical. That's where you employ Geidel, usually. So what is the word when two things are equal? It's not achris v'reishis. Achris v'reishis and the beginning are different. Right? Two dvarim shavim means they're actually equal. Another way of saying it is that the phenomena relative to the level of godliness is so meaningless that it's truly meaningless. That the unique characteristics of each one don't even come into the frame. He's so beyond it. Just as we say concerning matters of beginning and end, which means higher and lower, right? A higher level and a lower level. That there is a difference between one and the other. Similarly is the case concerning Kedusha and Sitra Achra, holiness and the opposite of holiness. So far as the perspective of the level of godliness denoted in the name Achashverosh, which is beyond Seder Shtalshalos, right? Yet there is a difference between holiness and Sitra Achra. But what? In what? So then why is it beyond Hishtalshalos? In what manner? Because of what is that level of godliness beyond? Why are the Achris v'Reishis Shalei equal before him? It's just that this level of godliness is so great and so high, so exalted, that it doesn't. It's almost insignificant, right? As mentioned before concerning the parable that I brought from the spider, it crawls in the king's palace and goes ahead and makes its webs or whatever it does, and he doesn't care because it's meaningless. That's why, so far as that level of godliness is concerned, there could be a sustaining klippa can draw some energy from that level, whether it's the level of chosh of Achashverosh, which is klippas nega, the neutral klippa, or rosh of Achashverosh, which is the level of klippa, the three levels of the three impure klippas. They can draw some sustenance from that level of godliness. Why? Because you're talking about a level of godliness where Kedusha and Sitra Achra are equal before him. To the extent that what? That there could even be an overpowering, Sitra Achra can overpower Kedusha at that level of godliness. And as he mentioned before, that Achashverosh is also it was called Achashverosh because in his times the face of Israel was blackened. Right? This is similar to the spider crawling with his hands in the palace of the king. Even though she causes the palace to become soiled, because it's as a result of the king's exaltedness and removed, the state of remove that he is from these petty matters, he doesn't pay attention and he's not particular to chase it away. But so far as that level is concerned, but not to such an extent. It's not that he doesn't care to such an extent that he will allow the spider to destroy the palace, right? In the moral, Haman, when he wanted to destroy the Jewish people, Rahman al-Islam, he couldn't just activate the prevailing beyond the Ishtalshalos level of godliness, the Achashverosh level. Why? Because that level will only allow Klippa to misbehave, to conceal Kedusha, to blacken the face of the Jewish people, but not to destroy them. Over there, the king minds. If the spider will start destroying the palace, the king will mind, and he will chase it away. So therefore, when Haman desired, wanted, he sought to destroy, God forbid, may it not be. He sought to destroy all the Jewish people. He drew lots. He threw a pur, which is a lottery. Because since, from the perspective of the level of godliness, the Geidel level of godliness, which is so beyond Hishtalshalos, so beyond the chain order of creation, that to begin with there's no difference between Kedusha and Sitrachra, between holiness and the opposite of holiness. And particularly based on that which is explained earlier in chapter 3 and 4, that Geidel is not only beyond the chain order of creation, but it is even beyond Hashem's will that is inserted in Torah and mitzvahs. So therefore, since Geidel is such a high level, where things are really and truly meaningless, therefore he thought, he thought that, God forbid, from the perspective of that level, he'll be able to carry out his evil scheme. Right? To sum it up, or to put it slightly into different terminology, or try to categorize it a bit. When we talk about, let's talk about Seichel, let's talk about Rotzen, and let's talk about beyond Rotzen. Soon the Rebbe is going to go into the difference between Bechira and Geidel. But let's talk about Seichel, Rotzen, and beyond Rotzen. Where in levels of godliness, we're talking about the Shtalshalos. Seichel is the Pnimi, as it were, the inner aspects. That would be the spheres of Shtalshalos. Rotzen, desire, that's Keser. It's Layomim Shtalshalos, beyond Shtalshalos. And then you have what he's talking about over here, even beyond that, even beyond the level of Shtalshalos, and even beyond the Rotzen of Torah and mitzvahs, right? Seichel, how does Seichel work? When I look at something, I have a choice of two things. So I can look at it. So if they possess characteristics which logically will tell me this is something that I should choose over the other, then it's a logical decision, right? Or Rotzen, I want this over that. What's the difference between Seichel and Rotzen? In Seichel, when you make a decision based on Seichel, it's the characteristics of that which you are analyzing or looking at, which drives your intellectual process to come to the conclusion that this is what's desirable, right? Common sense. What does common sense mean? It's something which prevails under normal circumstances by everyone. There are certain things that are good. There are certain things that are not good. There are certain things that are desirable. Certain things that should be rejected. That's a seichel-dike conclusion, which emanates from that which I am looking at. So it's from outside the person, which activates the seichel, and that's how you make the decision. Rotzen,
we hope.
We hope, yeah. I mean,
doesn't always work.
Doesn't always work. You're correct, but azay darf sein. Rotzen means I can't really decide based on what I see whether I should choose this or that, but I want this.
It's an emotional.
So it's an emotional, or it's something. But the point is that it's an emotional choice, right? Or a rotzen choice. But what is the word over there? It comes from within the person. It's got nothing to do really with the object. I want this. When you go, so that's also beyond the shtalshel. It's also beyond seichel, right? And it's from within the person. But I want that. What's beyond rotzen? When you go to Geidel, for example, When do you normally employ a girdle? Where I can't even activate my rotzen. I don't know. My rotzen doesn't. My seichel certainly doesn't drive me to choose one over the other, because they're equal. My rotzen also doesn't choose me to decide to choose one over the other, because they're equal. Take for example by the seirim, by the goats of Yom Kippur. They're equal. On what basis should I decide that this one goes to korban and this one goes to the cliff? So I can't even activate my rotzen. So I employ something which is even beyond that, girdle, which is completely from the outside of the person and completely based on fate, as it were. Seichel is something which you analyze, and your seichel says this is what you should choose. Girdle, there's nothing to analyze. It's also from outside the person, but it's completely beyond.
You're derogating your connection, your responsibility.
Precisely, and you decide that whatever the girdle, whatever the lottery will choose, that's what I'm going to go with. So we see, despite the fact that Rotzen is also beyond Seichel, there is a level which is even beyond that. So far as Achashverosh is concerned, right? So when you say, I'm looking at something I can't really choose, I don't really care, right? I don't care. But there's something which will cause you to care. If it's a level where the reason why those two things are equal is because I don't care, then it's not really equal. It's just that I don't care that this one has this characteristic and this one doesn't. But if that characteristic will be more pronounced or will have an additional characteristic, I will care. Which means to say that that level lends itself to some kind of involvement with those levels that at the present moment I'm beyond. So therefore, when it came to the Achashverosh level of godliness, even though Achris Vereshis Shaloi, it's beyond, in other words, I don't care. So okay, so the spider can climb happily in the palace, go about its business of making its spider webs, darkening Hushchru Pneim Shel Yisrael, right? To cause the desirability of the Eden to be reduced. Klippik can conceal Kedusha. I don't care. That level of godliness says I don't care. But once you enter into the level, into the area of destroying the Jewish people, I do care. Then Achris Vereshis is not equal anymore. So Haman understood that in order to go to the next stage, where not only should the Eden be on a lower burner, as it were, and Klippah should conceal Kedusha, but to take it a step further and to destroy Kedusha, God forbid, he needed to employ a level of godliness where Kedusha and Klippah are really equal. It's not that he doesn't care. They don't even come into the frame. You remember the metaphor that I used earlier? It's not that when it comes to a svara sichlis, to intellectual idea, you can't say it can't be apprehended with physical touch. It's completely beyond, doesn't come into the frame. So from that level of godliness, Achis Vereshis is not that it's insignificant. It doesn't come into the frame. So he thought that by linking it to that level, he'll be able to chas v'chalila carry out his evil plot. What was the Ness? As the Rebbe is going to say soon, that even the Geidel worked out in favor of the Bnei Yisrael, and we'll soon see why. Now, so going a step further, so we have Geidel. Geidel, so we said there's Seichel, there's Rotzen, and there's Geidel, right? There is Seichel, in other words, it's another way of saying Hishtalshalus, beyond Hishtalshalus, and then a level which is even more beyond Hishtalshalus. Seichel, Rotzen, and Geidel in ascending order. There's also Bechira, choice.
So in descending order, ascending order?
Ascending order. Zok the Rebbe Zeiches. Just like the level of godliness known as Geidel, that we categorize as Geidel, is beyond Seichel, beyond intellect, and beyond Rotzen, beyond desire. Al derech zehu b'negei libchira shulamayla meseichel ulamayla gam rotzen. Similarly, the level of bechira, of choice, is also beyond seichel, beyond intellect, and beyond desire. Top of Kuf Tezayim. Page Kuf Tezayim. Because when one's intellect compels one to choose or causes one to reach the conclusion that this is something desirable to choose. even when he wants a certain thing, something, not only because his intellect causes him to draw that conclusion, but even higher, that what? That he wants it. Because, in other words, we're talking about a level which is beyond seichel. So then you are compelled to do so. You're compelled to take that choice. The ain ze bechira chofshis is it's not real free choice. It's not free choice at all. Why? I'm not choosing by free choice. I'm choosing because my intellect says to me, I come to a rational decision that this is what I should want. Or if I can't reach a rational decision, I come to an emotional decision or a desire decision. My desire tells me I'm drawn to this. So that's not real. That's not free choice. There's something there that's free choice means there's nothing that causes me to choose one over the other, one method over the other. Here there is something that's causing me to choose. The true idea of choice is when his choice is not as a result of an intellectual decision, and also a rational decision, and also not as a result of a decision based on his will. But rather, he chooses because that's what he chooses by his free will. Right? So now the Rebbe, in other words, is going into describing the difference between Bechira and Geirel. Real Bechira, real free choice. What's real free choice? There is nothing that compels me or persuades me to choose one way or another. Either because they're all meaningless or because they're really equal. Right? And it's not based on a rational decision. It's not based on a decision because I want one over the other. I choose so because that's my free choice. So in other words, it sounds very, very similar to Geirel. Right? So what's the difference between that level and Bechira and Geirel? In level. The difference between the level of Geirel and Bechira is the Kisha Adam is a Geirel machlit. In the case of a person throwing a lottery, and deciding that as the Geirel will fall out, that's what he's going to want, then why does the person decide to want one thing over the other? Not because of him, not because of something that inside of him that drives him, but rather because that's how the lottery fell out. So in other words, it's something from outside the person. Or bechira, what is bechira? When a person chooses in the case of true free will, it's the person that chooses, right? So in other words, in Geirel and bechira themselves, even though they're both at a level where there's nothing from that which I choose, which causes me to choose over the other, but rather I'm at a level which is where I'm completely beyond it. The difference is that when one draws a lottery, it's something from outside the person that compels the person to behave in a certain way, or makes the person behave in a certain way, choose one way or the other. And bechira is something from inside the person. So therefore, what's the point? More from this is understood. When we talk about this level of bechira, of free choice, it is higher than what? Higher than geirel, higher than lottery. Why? The geirel When we speak about, let me just say it first, balpeh, and then inside it'll be easier, perhaps. Geirel means I'm so locked in, not being able to make the choice, that I have to resort to something which is outside of me. Meaning to say, we're talking about a level where it is limited or inhibited by the fact that the two things are equal. I can't choose. I don't know what to do. I can't find it within myself to choose this way or that way. Why? Because I am frozen into inaction by the fact that they're both equal. So the equalness of the two things, the equality of the two things, actually it frames me in a certain way, frames me that I can't act independently on my own. I need to resort to something outside of me. So the equality of the two things does have some meaning at that level. Meaning to the extent that I can't choose. Bechira is a level where the equality of the two things has no bearing on me at all. I can decide what to do. I decide that I choose this. It's a subtle nekuda, but the word is that Bechira is a higher level than Geirel. it's so not framed and limited by the phenomena which I have to choose. I'm so not framed by it that I can decide whatever I like to do. Whereas Geidel
be on that level that you're saying that their own emotions, their own history, their own characteristics, their own intellect is not involved at all in the choice. I mean, who can?
The Eibishter.
Only the Eibishter.
The Eibishter. The truth is, man also. Why? Because Nasa Adam et Zalmenu Kidmuseinu, let's make man in our image and in our form. One of the definitions is that Hashem gave a human being the ability to have free choice, which doesn't usually come to the fore. It's a very, very subtle nekuda. But when we talk about it by the Eibishter, it's a little bit easier to relate to. Meaning to say that Hashem is so not bound by anything outside of him that he can decide absolutely what he wants to do. He can choose cheshech, he can choose Eir, and so on and so forth.
Is different. But,
okay, but that's why he's
so tainted by reality and time that you
say that. But over here he's actually talking about it at the level of a lakus, because what he's driving at is that the Geidel is a lower level, Bechira is even higher than that, and the Geidel worked out according to Hashem's Bechira. That's the something that here. But what's the word? When we say move from this is understood, the Bechira here l'mayla meGeidel. Bechira is a higher level than Geidel, than lottery. The Geidel is a level of the soul where it is categorized and compelled, or as it were, frozen by the fact that the two things are equal, and that's why it can't choose. That's why he needs to resort to something outside of him. True free choice means he's not categorized, he's not compelled or forced or boxed in by anything at all. He's not even phased by what? By things that are equal. He can choose whatever he likes. So Bechira, Chavshis, is even higher than what? Than Geidel. More in Mitzvah Hashem on Thursday.